The Miami Hurricanes just solidified their running back room. They should have one of the top rotations in the entire country. Just landed a transfer from the 701 to the 305. CharMar Brown, welcome to the U.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On this loaded late night episode, we're going to talk about defensive back visits. So Miami had AJ Haulcy on campus yesterday into today. Still waiting on a decision, though, from the big-time transfer out of Houston. Is LSU going to get very much in the mix for him? They probably already are in the mix. We'll talk about that. Miami had Jakobe Thomas, safety from Tennessee, on campus. Miami had former Colorado Buffalo Colton Hood, a cornerback, on campus today. The Thomas and Hood visits were on Wednesday. Haulcy visit was on Tuesday. But let's talk about the offense, because the Miami Hurricanes just landed a big-time addition in the running back room. And Miami already has a ton of talent at the top of their rotation, right? Mark Fletcher, Jordan Lyle. But there was a gap, and especially an experience gap, from their second running back down to their third running back. And we know Miami likes to run the ball. They like to run the ball with power. And by the way, CharMar Brown, who goes by Marty, so I'm going to call him Marty, he adds a lot of power to that backfield. And something that I respect so much about Brown's decision to pick the University of Miami today on Wednesday is, earlier this week, it seemed that Marty Brown was really close to transferring to the Cal Golden Bears. And, thinking about making that move is completely understandable, because Cal, for those who have been following this April transfer portal, Cal has lost not one, not two, not three, but five. They have lost five running backs into the portal departing from their program. So Brown, being recruited by the Golden Bears, was basically given an opportunity. Come here, and not only can you start, you can carry as much as you want to, okay? So instead of going to Cal, where he would have essentially been a surefire starter, he chose the opportunity to compete at Miami versus the opportunity to waltz right into the starting lineup at Cal. I respect that so much. And, Miami, in landing Marty Brown, they also beat out the Nebraska Cornhuskers for this signing. And, I was consuming some Nebraska content within the last couple of days, and man, they really thought that this guy was going there, at least the people who covered that program. I can't speak for Matt Rule, their head coach, but the people who cover that Nebraska program really thought that Marty Brown was going to go there, especially after he backed off of his, he didn't actually commit to Cal, but he seemed close, and then he backed away from Cal, and Miami ends up getting it done. And again, folks, now the opportunity that Miami has, and again, I'm not even going to write off Marty Brown and say that he can't, pass anybody in front of him, or, maybe earn his way into some opportunities to even start here. And obviously, I pencil in Fletcher and or Lyle as the starting running back at Miami. But the thing about CharMar Brown is, this is an excellent football player. Now, I know he comes from a lower level of football, right? Comes in from an FCS program, but North Dakota State, the Bison, they're like the Alabama Crimson Tide of the FBS level. They just won a national championship last season. He was a big part of that national championship winning team for them. They have won more national titles at the FCS level than any other program has. So it's a great program, and he was an important member of that program. Marty Brown last season he won the prestigious Jerry Rice Award, an award that, by the way, was once won by Cam Ward, who started his career at the FCS level in Incarnate Word. The Jerry Rice Award is given out to the most outstanding freshman player at an FCS university, and Marty Brown just won that this past year as a running back. 244 carries, 1,181 yards, 15 touchdown runs this past season for Brown. As a receiver, modest production as a receiver, 6 receptions, 57 yards. And with Brown, he's an all-around back. He's got some speed. He can turn on the afterburners. But I think what really makes this guy special is his ability to always be moving forward. He's got the powerful frame, 5'11", 215 plus pounds. He's always going to pick up an extra couple of yards, and he's going to be going downhill. And based on what I've seen from this player and what I've heard about this player, I think he's going to be a perfect fit for the Mario Cristobal style and a perfect fit behind Miami's offensive line. And, I describe him as a power back. He can get moving. He averaged 4.8 yards per carry last year. And, you would imagine behind an offensive line like Miami's, although North Dakota State's offensive line is very good for the FCS level, but I imagine he's going to fit right in at Miami, and this is a young man who is ready to get to work down here. And again, Miami is able to land this commitment from Marty Brown over the Cal Golden Bears, where he would have waltzed right into the starting lineup. And, the other thing, I mentioned Cal has lost 5 running backs into the portal. They've lost a bunch of receivers. They've lost a bunch of tight ends. Most of the players that they've lost are on the offensive side of the football, and they seem to be having problems signing players to replace them. Their new offensive coordinator, Brian Harsin, that dude is like player repellent. Nobody seems to want to play for that guy. I mean, when he was the head coach at Auburn a couple of years ago, he got fired there after a couple of years. Like they got really sick of him there and seemed to not be getting off to the great start that he wanted to be off at Cal either. So Cal's loss and Nebraska's loss is Miami's gain, because the Hurricanes land an excellent football player in Marty Brown. And yeah, Miami's backfield now. I feel so great about this group. You have the proven production, Mark Fletcher, Jordan Lyle, Brown, proven guy at the FCS level, and I believe his power is going to translate to the FBS level and the Power 4 level. Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, again, like there's a big-time experience gap between him and Miami's other more proven backs, but he had a really good spring, and I'm cautiously optimistic, and I think a bunch of running backs can get on the field this year, because you guys also know I'm a big fan of Gerard Pringle as a true freshman who had a good spring as well. So I feel fantastic about Miami's 5-man backfield now, and also got a couple of walk-ons who can get some work there. But the 5-man scholarship backfield, I feel really good now. And you need to be rolling 5 deep at that position group, because we've seen it a couple years ago, 2023, 2022. Miami at times has been ravaged by injuries at running back. So 5 scholar, and knock on wood, everybody stays healthy this year. But you head into a season with like 4 scholarship backs. They might feel okay on paper, but you're a couple of injuries away from being really, really thin there. And Miami likes to rotate their backs. I mean, you had Damian Martinez, Mark Fletcher, and Jordan Lyle as a true freshman last year. A.J. Allen got some burn as well. Chris Johnson got a little bit of burn. So you had multiple running backs getting into the action last year. I think Miami is going to be able to use all of these players this year. Let's go from running backs to defensive backs. Miami brought out Rick Ross last night, prime 112 with AJ Haulcy, but we're still waiting on pins and needles for his decision. What's it going to be? Miami or LSU? You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on Locked On Canes. Folks, I'm only getting started with Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch a couple months back, I realized just how much I was spending on things like food delivery and streaming services. Now I budget smarter and I save so much more. And managing money with my wife is smoother than ever now. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. By the way, for anyone like watching the video version of this episode, you're like, what? Why is this doofus dressed up like Super Mario? Maybe I am paying homage to Mario Cristobal. It's a me. Or maybe I just came from Epic Universe, the new theme park in Florida with the Super Mario Super Nintendo world. And I geeked out a little bit. And you guys know what happens. When Donno leaves town, when I go on a vacation, or in this case, like a mini vacation, because that was a there and back, one day, all day thing. When I get out of pocket, Miami tends to land players. And of course, CharMar Brown, commits to the University of Miami, like right before I was about to get on the Donkey Kong roller coaster. That's just the way that these things tend to happen. All right. So, again, we've been waiting on the edges of our seats to see what happens with AJ Haulcy. 215-pound, first team all Big 12 safety, had just an awesome couple of years at Houston, and AJ Haulcy started every game he's played in. I mean, he's just been an absolute stalwart, and he's in the transfer portal from the Houston Cougars, and I think it's fair to say that Miami has been trending out in front for him. It's definitely another player, at least one other player in his recruitment now. Now, I think Ole Miss has lost some steam. LSU seems to be very much in it, but LSU hasn't gotten a visit yet. Like AJ Haulcy, he had his visit with Miami. He knows Zach Etheridge, one of Miami's defensive backs coaches, coached him at Houston. So the two of them have a connection. He understands exactly, the way Zach Etheridge runs his business and what he expects from Haulcy. So that relationship is there. And you talk about opportunities. I mean, AJ Haulcy understands there is an opportunity to come into Miami. You have to earn it, but there is an opportunity to be a starting safety at the University of Miami, right? I mean, that's definitely something that he has here, that he and Zechariah Poyser could end up being the starting safeties. And, Miami, for a player that we really covet, I think Miami does covet AJ Haulcy. They're always going to be competitive from an NIL point of view. And again, sounded like he had a tremendous visit from the football side of it. Looks like he even got a chance to check out some housing options, apartments in the area. And, he got to do what I'm always so envious of this. I wish I could go back in time and actually, achieve high levels of athletic success and go on an official visit to Miami, because you get that Prime 112 dinner. And much like what happened with Cam Ward, last year, who shows up to the Prime 112 dinner? Rick Ross. Rick Ross shows up to Prime 112, one of Miami's closers. Had the photo op with Haulcy, but AJ Haulcy is still officially undecided. And there is a growing belief, or from our point of view, a growing concern that he may want to check out LSU before he makes a decision. So you guys know I like to kind of see and understand what, the other side is saying, right? And actually, I will say that from a lot of the Miami side, there's definitely a little bit of concern. Well, what's going to happen with LSU? From the LSU side, there's a lot of concern. They consider Miami to be the trending leaders in his recruitment. There was one update I was looking at today from the publisher of the On3 LSU site. And it's interesting because the On3 LSU recruiting insiders and the 24/7 LSU recruiting insiders are saying things that are a little bit different from one another. but from Shay Dixon, the publisher of the LSU On 3 site, he said, I have stayed away. This was earlier this evening. I have stayed away from predicting this one because right now he's visited Miami, not set an LSU visit, and as of about 60 seconds ago, had not had his agent tell LSU anything about the NIL package they most recently presented to him, per a source. He's been in contact with LSU, as has his agent, who is primarily going to be the one handling talks at this stage if it comes down to simply finalizing an NIL package. He says LSU made a very good NIL offer per sources. Miami's is, from what I bet, higher, he said. So he has no idea what Miami's offer is, but he says from what I bet, Miami's is higher. He says both would be more than reasonable for a player of his caliber. LSU is now in the same spot where they've won so many and lost some. Quote, here's the final pitch. If you want in, great. If not, it'll be Miami. So, if you're a Miami person, you kind of appreciate the uncertainty and like his sentiment that, hey, Miami's maybe in the lead here. But you do kind of notice he did that thing that a lot of reporters who cover, other schools will do and say, hey, if it's a football decision, he's coming here. If it's a money decision, he's going to Miami, right? He even mentioned he's no idea what Miami's NIL offers. He's no clue. He admits that. I was also reading an update from Bryce Kuhn of the 24/7 Sports LSU site, and I'll paraphrase it. Basically said he doesn't think LSU is offering less or significantly less than Miami. He thinks it's very competitive from an NIL point of view, and he thinks LSU will be aggressive from an NIL point of view. But he also said, and this is, this has been going around the LSU circles, this could change, folks. Like the idea that AJ Haulcy has not set or taken an LSU visit, that hasn't happened, at least not yet, right? Which makes you feel right now confident in Miami because Miami has hosted him. In fact, Miami is the only school that he has visited. Other schools have visited him in Houston, have sent, coaches out there. Miami did that before he came down to visit South Florida, but he didn't visit Ole Miss, hasn't visited LSU. He has visited Miami, right? So, if he does decide to check out Baton Rouge, we're going to go from, I don't know, DEFCON 3 up to DEFCON 1, right? We're going to be a little bit concerned at that point. And that's basically what they were saying on the LSU 24/7 site was. Like, he thinks that, LSU is going to be very competitive with the NIL, that won't be the issue here. The issue is he going to get down there or get up there from our point of view for a visit or not? So, again, it's looking like a couple days ago, we would have characterized this as like an Ole Miss versus Miami versus LSU triple threat match. Now it looks more like a Miami versus LSU battle, with Miami probably trending out in front because he's visited us and not them. But if he does set a visit to LSU, we'll start to bite our fingernails a little bit and get a little bit nervous about that. So, hopefully Rick Ross was able to close that deal last night, but we're still waiting for the decision from AJ Haulcy. It's one of those things where you're kind of hoping maybe he will, close it down on Wednesday and announce a commitment, but that has not happened yet. We'll talk about other defensive backs that visited the U, and there's a big visitor linebacker coming in tomorrow. I could have phrased that better. There is a big visitor who happens to be a linebacker who's coming onto campus tomorrow. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you for making us your first listen and your first watch. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. I co-host that show with Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We have an episode of The Squad coming out tomorrow where a bunch of guys pop in, including AJ Black from Locked On Boston College, Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels, Jackson Holzer from Locked On Syracuse, who is ever present on the Squad episode. So we'll have a new Squad coming out on Thursday, available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So Miami on Wednesday hosted. This is, by the way, we're talking safeties here. I mean, Haulcy, I love Haulcy, but I'm also a big fan of Jakobe Thomas from Tennessee, and another experienced defensive back. And it's a guy, had he stayed in Knoxville, was projected to probably be a starter next year for the Volunteers. He played in relief mostly in 2024, but he appeared in every Volunteers game, all 13 games last year, recorded 22 total tackles, a sack, a fumble recovery. Played pretty well in coverage last year, had pretty good overall grades for Tennessee as a safety last season. And, the visit went well for him today. And one of the things that he talked about afterwards was, Miami has really emphasized to Jakobe Thomas that they're looking for more experience in that safety room. Like they're really looking for, guys like him and of course guys like AJ Haulcy to really solidify that. And I think he understands and appreciates that need. And Miami seems to be for him kind of trending either out in front or near in front. And maybe having both of these guys in the mix right now might put pressure on both of them, Haulcy and Jakobe Tom. Miami might take both if they both want to be Hurricanes, but I mean having them both kind of in the mix might put pressure on one another to commit and lock it down. I know that Miami on paper is pretty loaded when it comes to cornerback, but they did have a corner visiting today, Colton Hood, who had a good season with Colorado last year, 24 tackles, 6 pass deflections, 2 interceptions last season, 70.4 coverage grade last year, played 213 snaps this past season at corner, played 61 snaps in the slot, 59 snaps in the box. So he could play multiple roles. And we often talk about the connections that some of these visitors have with Miami staffers. And, with AJ Haulcy, he's got the connection with Zach Etheridge. And so does Colton Hood out of Colorado, because before he played in Boulder, he originally started his career, class of 2023 recruit at Auburn. 2023, that's where Zach Etheridge was. He was at Auburn, I should say, before he went to Houston in 2024. So this is someone, Colton Hood, that Zach Etheridge recruited, was the primary recruiter for out of high school. And I guess now you could say he's trying to recruit him for a second time here. So that was another defensive back that Miami had visiting. And I'm pretty pumped for a visit that Miami has at linebacker coming up tomorrow for a couple of different reasons. So Mohamed Toure, who had an awesome, he was injured last year, 2024, but had an awesome 2023 season with Corey Heatherman as his linebackers coach 2 years ago at Rutgers. Heatherman, of course, now Miami's defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. So in 2023, 92 tackles, forced fumble, an interception that year, played like an absolute beast under Corey Heatherman. And Mohamed Toure, who's in the transfer portal from Rutgers, could really, you talk about solidifying position groups. And Miami also already added Kamal Bonner at linebacker. But if they can also add Mohamed Toure to that mix, Miami has solidified their linebacking core. And just to have the opportunity to get him on campus on Thursday is big, because 24 hours ago, maybe even more recently than that, it was looking like Toure, and maybe there is still confidence in Penn State, but it was looking like he was a Penn State lock. And he's given Miami a look on Thursday, and obviously Miami's already, you could say, lost a battle potentially with Penn State, because they landed Trevor Pena, the slot receiver from Syracuse, who never actually made it down to a visit for Miami. Penn State was able to lock that up, and it was looking like they were going to do the same thing with Mohamed Toure. So for Miami to be able to get him in for a Thursday visit is big. And, if you can land a couple of these players, folks, I mean, if AJ Haulcy and or Jakobe Thomas, Mohamed Toure, you're talking about Miami maybe having a top 2 transfer portal class of 2025 before this is all said and done. So it's exciting times, and I'm happy you guys are here with me on a late night episode, because again, I spent most of the day at Epic Universe today. But when I saw Miami was able to land that transfer portal commitment from Marty Brown, I thought I got to do a late night episode. So I'm usually in bed by like 9:30. So you guys have to do me a favor for staying up late, for being so caffeinated today. Smash that thumbs up button, smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Canes, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and we will talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.